Hate him or love him, I guess he's the king of Miami now. Dan, what do you think?
What? Nah, I don't think about that. Yeah, I guess like we'll usually have a little yarn before we start the show. We just both like answer the call like, should we just jump into it? Should we? It's like ripping off a band-aid. Let's just rip it off, get into the show, feel it, embrace it, and then we can just embrace it. We'll embrace it all together. You know what I mean? It's better to
For
have
real.
friends around you. I feel like the loss was my own. That's how I'm genuinely taking it.
Yeah, it seemed like you were extremely emotionally invested in this fight with Jorge, with the links back to Miami and the backyard fighting and all of that good stuff. Yeah, it didn't really go any different than most people expected, right? Most people expected Colby to go in there, strike with him when he needed to strike, take him down, and try to maul him. And basically, that's what happened. You know what I mean? Like throughout the whole fight, except for maybe I think in the fourth round, Masvidal clipped him, and Colby dropped to like the knee, and then he got up and he smiled at him. I always wondered when a fighter gets
Chair jumper.
dropped. Yeah, when a fighter gets dropped and he gets up and he smiles, like, is that does that mean that they're hurt? Because you hear the commentators like, "Oh, he's hurt because he's smiling." I'm like, I don't know if you're hurt and you smile.
Depends. Like it's difficult. There was another fight like that. Also the Oliveira Holland fight where they one hurt the other. I think Holland hurt him and he like wobbled back and then he just rushed in too quick. And then Oliveira hurt Holland back, and then he starts backing up. So it's like that can be the wrong thing because you need to understand that a fighter is at their most dangerous when they're hurt. Because if I'm hurt and I'm tired and I'm about to get taken out of the fight, and you rush in to finish me, whatever opportunity that I get, I'm gonna go all in on, right? Like if I if I'm hurt and you rush me, it's like when you corner a rat. Like he's gonna go 100. He's gonna go all in on that one shot. So it can be like that's when fighters are their most dangerous is when they're hurt. Like that's when they're the most dangerous. But yeah, it didn't look like Colby was that hurt by the shot. He like pops up. Generally, it's worse when someone like pops up and then they just jump on the back foot. They're just like disengage, disengage, disengage. That's like a more like telling sign that someone's a bit more like seriously hurt.
Yeah, and everybody thought that was the opportunity for Masvidal to go in there and try to get the finish, but he was exhausted at that point, man. I think even after the fight, when he was talking to Joe Rogan, he said that it's just his wrestling wasn't on point, which kind of means like his cardio wasn't on point. It seems like it just wasn't there. Sometimes you fall flat, right? And in a fight, sometimes you don't go in there. You could go in there 100%, but once you step into the cage, it could turn into something else. And maybe that's what happened to Masvidal in here. You know what I mean? Because they, like you said, you remember last week you were talking about how they have hours and hours of training together, where it's like you kind of know what each other is going to do, right? Not much is going to be changing, and it just seemed like Colby just went in there and effectively implemented his style and won the fight. It was dominant, man. I felt like it was dominant. It wasn't like massively like damaging like the co-main event, but it was dominant, and Colby did his job. You want to hear a funny fact? The last 3 opponents Colby has beaten have all been his former training partners at America Top Team. Robbie Lawler,
Yeah, I've heard
Tyron Woodley.
it's a bit like that. Like it's like a bit of a Shark Tank when you get in there. Like if you just show up, because I was thinking about it when I was younger and I was gonna head over to the States to train. I was like having a look at all of the different gyms and just seeing like what would be the right fit. And I think originally I wanted to go to American Top Team just because there were so many fighters there. But then talks to guys that had been then like come and gone from there, and they pretty much told me like if you're like a younger guy coming in, it's like a sink or swim kind of thing. Like you show up at American Top Team, and you'll just get used as a body, right? Say like a bigger name fighter has a fight coming up, they'll just kind of pick you out of the group. Oh, he's fighting orthodox guy, 6 foot. Oh yeah, he's orthodox 6 foot. We got this new kid. Throw him in. He can do a couple rounds with this big name fighter. Oh, like not knocking the gym. Like there's a definitely like a working setup that they've got there. But I just heard about like guys like Hector Lombard just like ending numerous young fighters' careers. Like they'd throw him in, like a new guy would show up to the gym, they'd chuck him in with Hector Lombard, and Hector Lombard would just melt these kids and knock them out and hurt them so bad that it would actually shorten their careers and stuff like that. So yeah, after I kind of heard that, I was like, well, I don't just want to be used as cannon fodder. You know what I mean? I'd rather go to a place that wants to work with you and has a bit more of a team environment. That'd be the best thing.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know why. I've heard the same thing from people about Hector Lombard, like back in the day. I don't know if he's like that now, but back in the
Oh, I
day,
got
like he
some.
was.
I've heard I got a lot of Hector Lombard stories. Like the guy's a different beast, man. Like he's just a different weapon. Because he's fought on. We used to fight in Australia because he was originally
Oh,
living.
that's right.
He was originally living in Australia. So before he was in, even fighting in, I think he'd had a couple of fights in Bellator and stuff. But they flew him over to fight in AFC, and then I was the lightweight AFC champion. So we fought on a couple of cards together. And yeah, intense guy. Like I went over to corner my mate, Rod McSwain, and we went over there, and we were at the bakery across the road from a gym, and we just heard like yelling. Just the gym was across the street on the second floor up, and we just heard like like yelling, and we're just like, man, what's that? That's weird. Like got something to eat at the bakery, walked into the gym because that's where we were going for the weigh-ins. We go upstairs, like Hector Lombard's hitting pads, and he's just like throw a combination, just go like scream like you're the best, like scream like another combination like you're the fastest in the world, another combination like no one hits harder than you, and then he's just I think he like turned to me. I can't remember what he said, and yeah, he like turned to me and he's just like, "Are you gonna be in the UFC one day or something?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know, we'll see." And he's like, "Whoa, you're not gonna get with that attitude." And I was just like, "Oh shit, this dude's intense, bro." Just an intense guy. And then we went to the weigh-in, which was like at a bar, and then a guy was sitting down getting ready to weigh in, and it was like a packed bar. The guy was standing like 3-4 feet away from him, facing the other way, talking to someone, and he just stands up and he's like, "Get the fuck away from me! You're standing too close to me!" And I was just like, "Oh my guy, like no chill. It's cool." But he did like everything he did was quick. You know what I mean? Like you go to eat, I think like we at a meal with him, like that. He's down the other end of the table, but even the way that he grabs his knife, he's just like grabs his fork, like cuts his food. Like he's just everything is like fast twitch. He doesn't do nothing slow. He's got like zero slow twitch muscle fibers.
Yeah, he defected, right? In Australia, I
Defected
believe,
from
right?
yeah,
Cuba.
he that would be I think he defected at the Sydney Olympics. He come over
Yeah,
with the judo team, and then
yeah,
like defected and stayed in Australia.
yeah.
I think now he lives in the US.
Yeah, I believe so too. But man,
Well, he's fighting
that
bare
guy.
knuckle, I think.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
fighting bare knuckle. I think
yeah.
he became the champion over there for one of those promotions. But yeah, his story is crazy, man. I would love to see like a series about his life journey, man. Imagine that,
Perfect,
just like leaving your whole family and defecting to another country, that is just
perfect, man.
insane in itself. Not many people are going through that. Um, Going back to the fight though, with Colby and then Jorge, it is what it is, right? Now, where does Colby go from here? He's we knew that he was gonna scream out the biggest fight that's out there for him because he can't fight for the title. And who's that? Dustin Poirier. So, what do you think? Do you think that fight happens, Dan?
Mm, only because Poirier said and come out like he's not willing to take that fight. He's just calling out another guy that sells pay-per-views. right? And that's like another pay-per-view opportunity for him to build his brand. Like, regardless of what you think about his character, he is very aware of what he's doing and how he's trying to set it up. Like, he's still not in a position to be one of those guys to get pay-per-view points. Like, there's only a handful of guys in the UFC that are not title holders. Like, there's even a lot of title holders that don't get pay-per-view. And you can look at that as Jorge, Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, I believe. And that's it. That's like 4 guys that hold that don't hold titles that get pay-per-view points. So he called out like another guy on that list. Maybe even Nate would have been a better call out. I'm not sure. I get it. There's like the personal beef there. He gets to build his brand, and that's like another ex-teammate, which he already knows and like understands his game. But it's like it's funny the way that he's going about it, because it's working to a certain degree. And I feel like now we're like past the point of all the fans even buying into the character that he's putting on. I feel like the entire MMA audience can see what he's doing, can see that he's mimicking the like pro wrestling avenue of selling a fight. And I can understand it. I just don't think that's the way the sport will evolve and go long term, or even the best avenue for the sport to go and evolve. Because you can look at pro wrestling. They've been doing it for the longest time. Like that's pro wrestling, right? Like, guys get on the mic and then they build a character that the fans hate. So then they walk out and then either they cheer or they boo them and they hate them. But you can look at pro wrestling. Pro wrestling's been around so much longer than the UFC, and they're, I would say, a smaller company. It's like, is pro wrestling on ESPN? Like, it's already like a smaller sport, so it's obvious that copying like that pattern, and all of us now creating characters and stuff like this and being hated just to sell fights and market fights, but that sport is not growing. Like, that's not good for the sport long term. That's good for Colby. That's good for that avenue that he's painted for himself, but it's not good like for a good way to grow the sport long term. Like, you can look at any professional sport that's out there, soccer or tennis, where there's like the highest paid athletes in the world, and they don't carry themselves like that. They don't sell themselves like that. They don't market themselves like that. It's not. That's just like my observation. These are just my own, my own kind of observations. Is that that's not how the biggest and highest paid athletes in the sport market themselves. And you can even look at those 4 guys: Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier. Are any of them putting on a character? It's like, I don't believe they are. I believe that that's genuinely those guys. That's genuinely their personalities. And so that, to me, is like, that draws people's attention to a different level. Like, Colby's drawn them to here, but it's like he still can't break through to that that superstar status, that pay-per-view status where people cannot miss a fight. Like, regardless, Jorge's still going to be a big name. He could go back and do the Dustin Poirier fight. He could, he could call out Conor McGregor and fight Conor McGregor. Like, he still has pay-per-view in his future. That's just the guy he is, because people like him for who he is. He doesn't need to design some kind of character. And you can see that from what like Jorge was saying earlier on, that Jorge's getting pay-per-view and Colby's not. Like, the UFC is just like, you don't sell pay-per-views. Like, you're not going to sell this pay-per-view, so why should you get a share of this pay-per-view?
Yeah, I was looking at the odds. There was already odds out for that fight with Colby versus Dustin, If you go, there's a link in the description. You guys could go to it for CloudBet. They have the odds. Colby's at like -118 and Dustin's at +100. I feel like that's cool. You know what I mean? I don't see, as long as it's like not -500 or something crazy like that, I think the odds are fine. That fight, I think a lot of people want that fight. I think fans want that fight. I think a lot of people want somebody to go in there and knock Colby out like Usman did. You know what I mean? That's what people want. And the thing about Colby, you mentioned the ceiling, right? He's hit his ceiling, right? But I know a way.
Well, he's
I know a
already
way,
shifted
Dad.
it. He's already shifted it. Like he's shifted it to like he just attaches his name to different things. So I saw your tweet like early on where you're just like, oh man, like who else is shouting out for the first responders and the police and
Exactly.
things like that? But is it genuine?
That's the thing.
So
I don't know. It could be genuine, right? Because he does go
was
out there
he
and
was
visit the
he
military
was
and
he
first responders.
genuinely he went to the White House and shook hands with Donald Trump. Is he genuinely a Donald Trump supporter, or did he just attach that name to build his own brand? So it's hard when he's incredibly genuine cause for ungenuine reasons.
Exactly. You're right.
That with his, if he just came out and was just like, yeah, I'm scrapping it. I'm gonna be me. Like I'm comfortable with who I am, but this is something I'm passionate about. I'm genuinely passionate about first responder. I'm genuinely passionate about all these guys and their job, what they do, the military. These guys protect and serve. Then potentially that ceiling for him rises. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does if it's genuine. But I already know another way to crack that ceiling. You know what I mean? Because it seems like he just kind of like shifted from the Donald Trump shit to like, okay, I'm gonna attach on to the first responders because it's kind of linked together. Like USA and America and defending the country and all that stuff, right? Exactly. But I know
It
the
can't be
way.
attacked.
I know a way that he could become a pay-per-view star. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to release the secret right now. He goes against America. He flips it on its head and he goes against America. He just turns into the character that's like anti-American that lives in America. And then the hate will go from, let's say it's at 50 right now, it'll go to 100. And then he will be able to sell pay-per-views because people will hate him, like in their guts, like in their heart, they will hate him so much. They want him to lose. And he's going to be able to, well, you got your tinfoil hat? You got your tinfoil hat?
Did you not see Sean? Did you not see Sean Strickland? He just stole your idea.
Oh, he did.
Stole your idea. Yeah, he came out. He said something in a story, and he said that for $10 million, he will fight America. He will fight with Russia against America in the war. So we can kind of we'll use that as we'll use that as an experiment, and maybe Colby can sit back and use that as an experiment. I think that's gonna blow up in his face real bad. I think people are gonna like, yeah, Americans are the patriotism that they have and they show is genuine. Like that's so deep. It's not like a lot of other places. I'd say it's it's different, man. It's different. Like I've been at football games and hockey games and stuff like that when you play the national anthem. I was at a hockey game on Veterans Day, and just people, the anthem plays, they got their hand on their heart. You look around and people are in tears. People are genuinely thought like it's just provokes emotion out of them. They're just all genuinely upset, genuinely just remembering the people in their lives that are serving and stuff like that. So that could go one of two ways. That's either gonna work, or it's gonna get Colby Covington shot. There's a high percent chance. I say there's a 90% chance Colby ends up with a bullet in his back if he takes your advice.
Well, I guess we're gonna have to like send Sean Strickland and Colby Covington to go fight in the war somewhere, right? They need to do like a month tour or something to show us that they're legit. I don't know, but yeah, it's Sean Strickland is Sean Strickland. Colby is Colby. Those are two different animals, but kind of the same in a way, but not really. If Dustin doesn't fight Colby, where does Colby go? Because he kind of is in like this no man's land in the welterweight division, right? He talks about going to middleweight maybe, but I don't think we see him at middleweight. Who does he fight? You know what I mean? Like I don't.
The winner of Burns Chimaev.
Oh,
That's a
you think
chance.
so? Okay.
Maybe if Chimaev wins, he'll probably. When is that? When are they going back to Abu Dhabi? Like when's that scheduled? Because that has.
Oh, that Chimaev. The Chimaev fight is
Nah, not the Chimaev fight. I know he's fighting Burns pretty soon. Like that's not too far away. But when is the UFC going back to Abu Dhabi? When is the UFC going back to
They
fight?
haven't scheduled anything for Abu Dhabi.
They
Nothing.
go in.
I know. You might know something, some secrets.
Man, I don't know shit. Twitter knows everything. Twitter. I've actually learned about my own fights on Twitter before. I've actually logged on to Twitter and been like rumors circulating. Dan Hooker's fighting this guy, and I was like, what? I was thinking, fuck, someone made that up. And then like that afternoon, Sean Shelby sends you a message, and he's just like with that same name and the date, and I'm just like, no shit. I was like, all right. And then it happened again, and I was like, and then I saw the thing on Twitter, and I was like, oh, I bet I'm gonna be expecting an email soon. I've seen my fight announced on Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter's it's another world, man. That's where MMA lives. You mentioned Chimaev, you know what I mean? Like I guess whoever wins between Chimaev and Burns could fight Colby, you know what I mean? That does make sense when I think about it. I'm pretty sure both of those guys, if they win, they're going to be screaming for a title shot, but it looks like Leon Edwards is going to get that. We just don't know when they're going to fight.
I think it's kind of guaranteed. Yeah, I think like Leon, I know there's an event. They're going back to Abu Dhabi. They have a contract agreement with Abu Dhabi, and to take it back there because he's not Muslim, but they kind of claimed him because he is Kazakhstani, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Comes out.
Chechnya? Is he Chechen?
Chechen. He might be Chechen.
Yeah, Chechen. Yeah, maybe.
And
I don't want to get that wrong.
Yeah, we'll get killed. But they kind of like group both of them together, and the Muslim fans, because he's from that region, kind of support them. Support Hamzat quite. So I feel like if Hamzat wins, they could give him a title shot if that show goes back to Abu Dhabi. I feel like if Burns wins, then they'll go Covington Burns.
Yeah, I like either fight. You know what I mean? I'm more intrigued, to be honest, with Covington and Hamzat. If Hamzat does get past Burns has become a different animal at a welterweight, man, just a completely different fighter. But yeah, I'm intrigued by that. Actually, for the people that are watching, I'm actually interviewing Burns this week.
Oh,
so
nice.
We'll get some good stuff from Burns. I've been talking to him for a while, so he's always been pretty cool at just hopping on and for a chat. Yeah, so like I guess that's the future for them. Jorge, he signed a brand new deal this week ahead of the fight, which seems like has been like the newest thing to do now, is like sign a new deal before you fight in a pay-per-view. Israel did it. Now Jorge did it. I guess he's gonna probably be with the promotion for a while, probably on pay-per-views. What's a pay-per-view event, that he can put on against a big name fight? There's 3 of them, right? There's Conor, right? There's Nate Diaz, the rematch.
That doesn't mean he's going to get pay-per-views every single fight. I don't know how his contracts.
Well, I think if it's Conor or Nate, he probably would get some.
Any of those guys, yeah. Conor or Nate, he's getting pay-per-view points, but it would have to be a fighter that brings over like a certain threshold.
Yeah,
you couldn't just.
What is a
like
bigger fight for you? Is it Conor or Nate for Jorge Masvidal?
Probably Conor.
So
Conor just because I don't know. We kind of saw how the Nate fight would play out, right?
Yeah.
Like you can say what you want to say, but he was pretty handedly beaten in that
Beaten.
fight.
Yeah, it was bad, dude. Like
It was one-sided, yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
Jorge looked probably one of his best fights right there when he took out Nate in that fight, man. That was a beatdown right there. And yeah, so I guess Conor. So last week we talked about Conor and him being in the mix, and then Dan's all over the news again about that. and Conor, if he comes back, I would like to see him come back at 170. To be honest with you, like the lightweight division is pretty active to the point where, Conor is a big name. He could hop in, but I think Conor comes back from the broken leg. He fights at 170 against Masvidal, which is a winnable fight, I believe. You know what I mean? It's a competitive fight. And if he does beat him at 170, the UFC has given title fights for guys that have won in different weight classes and move to another one, right? So I could see that kind of happening in the future. Why not? Why not do it that way?
Could. I think Conor gets a title shot off RDA. I feel like he beats RDA, he gets the title shot.
Mm-hmm.
Without
so
a
you
doubt.
think RDA could fight Conor next?
I think just because of the backstory that's there as well, like they were set to fight. RDA is like a former champ. They can show how it all played out from the last fight, like tie it together. It's a big fight. It's a big fight. I feel like that fight is marketable for sure. Like it's a fight that's supposed to happen, and Conor fell through. And that's also that if Conor, if the timing doesn't work for a title shot, because they just announced Gagey Oliveira, correct?
They did.
May?
Yeah, May
8th or something.
Mm-hmm. May, and then 274 is going to be, I think 274 is in May, and then 273 is in April. Yeah, next month. So May is 274, and then 275 in Singapore. Did you see that? 275 in Singapore?
Yeah, I want to try to get on that card.
I know your whole team is probably going to try to get on that card.
Singapore is 8 hours away.
I'm gonna definitely be in Singapore. If that happens in Singapore, it's just a rumor right now. But I've heard from multiple sources now that it is going to be in Singapore. I will definitely be at those fights. That is going to be easy for me. It's like 6 hours flight. Nothing. 8 is nothing when you're flying all across to the US, man. On those 14 hours.
Close my eyes, open my eyes. It ain't flying 14 there and then 14 to London, I'll tell you that much. 8 is a cakewalk. But that'll be good. That'll be good to get on that Singapore card. And it's Yuri and Glover,
and then Shevchenko is on there too.
Oh,
2 titles.
2 titles.
Yeah, that's a big card. That's a big pay-per-view. I can't miss that. You know what I mean? Let's talk about the co-main event. The RDA. Moicano steps in on days' notice. They take that catch weight. I was, when that stuff was going on, I was thinking in my mind, man, if Dan was in Vegas, I bet you Dan would be fighting RDA right now this week. Would you have took the fight if you were in Vegas? You would have, right?
Of course I would have. Of course.
What do you think of Islam like kind of talking shit online and then like, because it seemed like he did take like accept the fight and then he pulled out last second. That was kind of a weird situation right there too.
Yeah, that was weird. You could have just said nothing and you would have been better off. When I first saw the tweet, I didn't think he was serious. And then he got his bluff called and but not knocking it or not like I don't mean offense by it, but like those guys don't take short notice fight. Yeah. Those guys don't take short notice fights unless it's like their camp. It's like an RDA situation. Like he's done a camp and there's like a late replacement for the other guy. Like that's the only short notice fights that those guys take. They don't just like jump out of bed and just be like, "Yep, I'll fight him." So they do. It's why their records are nice. It's why they have nice. It's why they have nice looking records because they don't they'll like minimize risk.
Moicano, he didn't minimize anything. He flew. He got on a plane. He was in Brazil, I believe, at the time. He got on a plane, flew to Vegas a couple days, and he's fighting RDA at 160 in a 5-round fight, and he took a beating. But man, in that 5th round, he was coming back. Like they almost finished, or they almost stopped the fight a couple times, right? I believe, what was that, the 3rd round or 2nd round, where RDA dropped him with the head kick, and then that's when like he went in for the finish, and then Moicano survived. And then after the 4th round, his face was just mangled, looked like he got on like a head-on collision with somebody. And the doctor was like, he tried to shift it onto the ref. Did you see that little conversation in the cage?
Both of them though, they're I'm like watching the fight, and Joe Rogan's kicking up a fuss, and they're kicking up a fuss like, oh man, this needs to be stopped. This needs to be stopped. Oh, it's up to this guy. It's up to this guy. Or the corner will take a good look at him. Or the referee and the doctor will take it. Like, look at our sport. We don't get fight stopped. How often do you see a corner throw in a towel? You know what I mean? How often do you see a doctor grow some balls and be like, nah, well, I've seen enough? How often do you even like a referee just be like, nah, like this guy's had it's not I'm watching that fight. I didn't think it was ever gonna happen. I don't think any one of those, because it's not how our sport is constructed at the moment. It will one day. One day, like the tide will turn. It's kind of like I would say it's kind of like precedents in court cases.
Mm-hmm.
Once like one precedent is set in a court case, then everyone else can kind of use that. But we don't have a precedent, right? Like unless a guy's like, well, even if a guy's on one leg, you know what I mean? Like there's been Sean O'Malley limping, literally just like falling on his back and lying there, like getting the guy to attack him. That's still not stopped. The doctor never stopped it. The corner never stopped it. The referee never stopped it. There's countless situations like that. No precedent has been set in our sport for stopping fights. It's not like boxing. They don't tend to. Well, boxing's like a different setup because, like I was talking about last week, guys get paid for their health. Like it's a bit more mismatched. So once, and there's like far less avenues to win. Just with the hands, you can see one guy's getting like thoroughly outclassed. If a guy's getting thoroughly outclassed in boxing, the referee will generally just wave it off, or the corner will wave it off. That is it's far more common in boxing, but you need to understand that boxing has been around a lot longer than MMA, and we've seen what's happened to older boxers, and we've seen that it does shorten their careers, and we've seen that it does give these guys long-term ill health effects. So that's why the precedent has been set in boxing. So when a referee does wave off a fight, there's no big up in arms and throw the toys out of the cot and have like a big cry about it. But in our sport at the moment, it's not happening.
Yeah, it doesn't
It
seem
should.
like it. Yeah, it
It
should.
should. I like, me as a fighter, I feel like it should, because me as a fighter, I'm never stopping it. You know what I mean? You can't
Yeah.
like they'll keep turning to the fighter. The referee asks the fighter, "Oh, do you want to?"
Mhm.
On camera, countless million people watching the fight, all your friends and family watching the fight. The referee goes on camera with a microphone. Do you want to keep fighting, or do you want to be a little bitch? Like that's pretty much what he's saying, right? Doctor going like, follow my finger, like it's just precedent's not set. It's not happening. It should. It will at some stage, but not yet. Our sport is still too young.
Yeah, the last time I remember even seeing a towel being thrown was years ago in the UFC. Maybe recently there was one, but from a famous fighter, like a high level fight, like a big fight would be when Nate Diaz fought Josh Thompson. Remember when Josh Thompson head kicked Nate Diaz? His corner threw in the towel. I think his brother Nick Diaz threw in the towel in that fight.
I think he was already knocked out.
He was, but then the towel came in, right? So they didn't want him
Yeah,
to
I
take the
think
knee or
like I
whatever.
feel like the body collapsed and
Mhm.
then like the limp body and then the towel like flew
Yeah,
over.
the towel came in, but
So it's a
they
bit like
threw in the towel, right?
it's a little bit late. Yeah, but that's just
Yeah,
more like that's more symbolism than
yeah, yeah. You can, yeah.
like
I
an
guess you can.
actual like effective stoppage of a fight.
Yeah, it's not. It wasn't effective. Yeah, he
Well,
was
like
already knocked out.
MMA is also different in that there are so many more avenues to win the fight. It's like
Mm.
yeah, like you can be getting just beaten to death on the ground like or you know you would never have stopped like the Bryce Mitchell Barboza fight was very one sided. What's the one? Brunson's corner
Brunson.
threw in
Yeah,
the towel right on the
that was
finish.
right.
Yeah, but as the guy's finished. It's
Yeah, he
already
was.
like
You're right.
it's all she wrote. Like the guy's already knocked out. Of course, it's gonna referee's running over. You're just like throwing the towel in as like a symbol.
Yeah.
We're talking about like a fight changing
Is that a symbol of like
pro.
I care? Even though it's already over, it's
Yeah,
like you throw
yeah,
it in there like
yeah.
I
It's
care.
like I still care about you. You know, it's just like yeah, it's symbolism. It's not you're not actually stepping in and just being like, nah, 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 nah. Me
Yeah.
as a me as a coach, like I've done it. I've done it. But me as a coach, like I never even put guys in if they're getting outclassed, if it's just a mismatch, like because you do get that early on in guys' careers or early on in when it's like under that 5 fight mark before you have like 5 fights because it's very hard to know what a guy's really made of or it's
Mhm.
very hard to compare. Like, oh, I got a guy with 1 fight, oh, I got a guy with no fights. Like, and they show up and one's an absolute weapon. And then the other, like, been training for 8 years. Other guy walked in the gym 6 months ago. It's hard to gauge, right? So
Yeah.
I've been in positions like that as a coach. My guy's getting outclassed, and you're just like, nah, like I've seen enough.
Mhm.
This is a mismatch. I don't need him in his first fight, second fight, third fight, fourth fight, fifth fight. I don't need my fighter to go out there and show me how tough he is. I don't need that. I've seen in the gym that the guy's tough. I've seen in the gym that the guy's committed. I've seen in the gym that the guy wants to be there, but he doesn't need that in his first 5 fights just to show me how deep he can dig. That can come later. That can come when it's a good even fight that gets difficult. That's when a fighter truly gets to showcase like what they're made of. That's like what it's about, not a mismatch. Like Jorge was saying, sometimes you just have an off night. It could be a
Mhm.
evenly matched fight. Sometimes you get out there and you just have a bad day at work. And in our sport, that's what a bad day at work. And some other people, you know what I mean? Like other people, bad day at work, your printer runs out of ink, or you a plumber and you crack a pipe you shouldn't have cracked, or
Mhm.
you lose your drill. You know what I mean? In our sport, you have a bad day at work, you show up, you get knocked out, you get beaten up for 25 minutes, you get choked unconscious. A bad day at work just looks very different in our line of work.
That's without a doubt, man. And yeah, I think you're right. We do need to start, I guess approaching it differently. The referees, the doctors. I think the doctors they need to kind of reassess, how they like evaluate the fighter in the cage a little bit better, and maybe if a doctor stops a fight, like you can't question that. He's a fucking doctor, right? Like
Mm,
he knows what he's fucking
mm,
looking at. He
mm.
knows what kind of damage you have taken or might get, might add on to, you know what I mean? Like your face, like
But
you might not even look the same.
how many times have we seen this? Because I remember having seen it. Like guy's eyes all fucked up, you can't see, it's like closed. It's like blood in his eye, and the doctor or the referee are like, over here, or close on eyes. How many fingers am I holding up? And the guy's like 3, and they're like, yeah, he's all right. Like it's not even the guy didn't even the guy didn't even pass the test, right? And they just let the fight. I think Herb's done that once, where the guy didn't even pass the test, and he was just like, "Oh, well, keep it going like this." Should be. How hard is that as a doctor? You know what I mean? How hard is it to have an actual test that you need to pass before the round continues? Like, how hard is it for a doctor to like close the eye and then like hold something up and just be like, "Tell me how many dots you see," and you go, and if you can't answer it, then the fight is off. Like that. Is that like a ridiculous thing to say, or a doctor to just be like, take 5 step, walk in a straight line, stand on one leg, and you just stand there like, whoa, because you're still concussed? Is it the doctor got enough balls to be like, yo, fight off? That guy, I've seen enough.
Exactly.
This guy's not. This guy can't walk in a straight line. He obviously can't fight.
If a cop can pull you over and put you through tests to figure out if you're really drunk, I'm thinking the doctor can come into the cage and have
It's gotta
a
be
couple
quick
tests.
though. It's gotta be quick though.
It's gotta be quick because they're like, step forward, step back. I think they did it to Ortega. Remember in the Volk fight?
Yeah, they go. That's one I was thinking of. Yeah, the cat said Ortega said the wrong number.
Yeah.
They said, how many fingers am I holding up? How many fingers am I holding up? 4. Yeah, all right, close enough. You know what I mean? Like, no, I was wrong. But then, like, checking, there's like 2 sides to the coin, right? Then Ortega got like an extra 40 seconds.
Mhm.
So he was like badly injured, like heavily damaged in at that point of the fight. You get your minutes rest between the round, and by the time the doctor was done, it's like another 50 seconds or something like that. Like, the guy already had damn near twice as much time to recover.
Yeah, and you know what you were saying earlier about RDA. It seems like he's calling for a summer fight with McGregor, and yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. You know what I mean? I wouldn't mind seeing it because Oliveira's gonna fight. What's his name?
That's what I
Gaethje.
said. That's
Yeah,
what I said.
I don't know. Maybe the tinfoil hat is, you know, the
That's
symbolic
what I
tinfoil hat.
said.
You know, the symbolic tinfoil hat is working out for you. Yeah, it's Moicano, man. He's a dog, man. Like the dude, he was pissed after the fight. Probably just pissed at himself. You know what I mean? Like, and at the end of the day, like you said, he will never say that he's not gonna fight the next round. That's just not gonna happen. You know what I mean?
Nah.
Especially a guy like that. You know what I mean? It happens in the sport, but very rarely because you guys have gone through so much suffering to become an elite athlete that fight is probably not that much. You know, you've worked so hard that fight, taking that damage, it doesn't
What's it
feel
like?
like
It's just absolutely inside of you. It just
yeah.
becomes like you work so hard in the gym, you've sacrificed so much to be in there. It just becomes like who you are. Like, you're not going to get put in that situation and then turn tail and run, or quit in front of the entire world. That's just not who it is. It can't. But it can't. That's what I'm saying. It can't be on the fighter. You need to have people willing to step up and take
Yeah.
that from the fighter.
The fight that started the pay-per-view was Greg Hardy versus Spivak. Spivak, right? And man, Greg Hardy, one thing about him is that he talks like he is the best in the world, right? Like throughout the week, you know, even after his losses, he's calling out the guys that knocked him out. You know what I mean? Like he talks the talk. You know what I mean? Like he's up there with like guys that just ramble and you know where it's coming from, but it doesn't make any sense, right? I think he's been like 2-3 in his last 5 fights. This is his last fight on his UFC contract. I think he talked about going to boxing after this fight. What have you thought about his like whole career, dude? Because it seemed like the UFC was kind of trying to build them, you know what I mean? Because he's been on like so many pay-per-views and
Of
he
course,
just hasn't
that's a
come through.
guy. Yeah, but that's a guy that crosses over into that mainstream audience. Like, they signed him at the perfect time. They signed him at the time when they just signed the UFC, the ESPN deal.
Mhm.
And obviously, like, Greg Hardy's NFL background, NFL is Greg Hardy, because of all the drama in his career and the controversy, is a household name for ESPN NFL fans. Like, they talked about that. You know, they talked about him getting the biggest names in it. Those, you know, the loudmouth idiots that just say things in a cool way. Like, they just talk cool. What's his name? Like Stephen A. And then all the guys like that. I'm not targeting him specifically. I've just done another headline. Congratulations, Dan. But
Skip Bayless.
I'm not. You're chucking another one in the headline. But like, those guys are mainstream sports reporters, and they talk about Greg Hardy. So when you put them on a pay-per-view and then the prelims are on ESPN and people see, Greg Hardy's going to fight. Oh, I know that name. You know, oh, man, I'd like to see him get beaten up. Or, oh, yeah, no, I'd like to see how he's playing out. So that was like a perfect move by the UFC. But, yeah, he just hit a hard road. Like, no, Spivak's a beast.
Yeah.
You know, he's
big boy.
Beaten Ty like a pretty similar way. Like, he's beaten some world-class heavyweights, and he's only lost, like, his only losses are like Tybura, Walt Harris,
Overeem, maybe. Was
like,
that
the guys. Yeah, I'm not
he's
sure
good.
about
Spivak is good. He's just, nobody really knows who he is, but he's good.
Very quality fighter.
Do you think the UFC re-signs Greg Hardy though? Like, I think, you know, a lot of people believe that this experiment is pretty much over with. You know, they can't invest. I'd rather them take that money that they're going to give to Greg Hardy, because it seems like it's not working, and like disperse it to other fighters, you know what I mean, and like make their pay a little bit better. That's what I want to see, as you know, as a fan of the sport. I don't like, why would you spend, like, he's getting chunks of cash, man. Like, he's getting like 6 figures to fight. Like,
that's not how it works.
I know, but I'm just saying, like,
my guy.
I know,
my guy,
but I'm just
that's
saying.
not how it works, my guy. They don't just be like, oh,
I know.
So we don't have Greg Hardy anymore. We've got an extra $1 million a year. Oh, you know what? I might give that to Bryce Mitchell. Oh, you know what? This guy's Spivak's been really good. I might give him extra. They just keep that money. What? They save $1 million. They just been like, more. There's another $1 million that they get to keep. Like, this is not. It's business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even like offended by any of it. It's just business.
It is business.
It's 3 words. It's just business. Like, don't get, as a fighter, like, you can't get. Yeah, it's just business. Don't take it personal. That's what.
You see, Drake,
that should be like, that's like the translation of "it's just business" is don't take it personally. Everybody's trying to win.
Yeah, that's right. But you know, that's just me like thinking of, you know, fighters and money that they're spending. If I was working for the UFC, they probably fire me the next day. You know what I mean? Because I would be saying some shit
like,
that doesn't make any sense.
Like, my guy, you just gave, you just dispersed $1 million amongst a bunch of fighters. They'll be like, no, what are you doing? You're fired.
Exactly. I said after the Greg Hardy fight that, man, I would like to see him in BKFC. I would like to see him there. You know what I mean? I think he would draw a lot of attention.
Yeah. That's like a good. That's like the, you know, obviously it's better to do it off a win, fighting out your contract. But now he gets to test free agency. He gets to test the free market. Mm-hmm. He gets to test BKFC, PFL, Bellator, or boxing. I feel like he could still get some big fights in boxing.
I think so too. He's
like still like he's still just a freak out athlete and like a household name. It's a household name in America.
He is, and you're right. Like, I think boxing would be probably the best, because he is a former NFL linebacker, and he is now a former UFC heavyweight going into boxing. That would just draw attention in itself, right there. They could promote the hell out of it.
WWE, like, he could go anywhere. He could go anywhere he wants to. He will go where whoever pays him the most. That's the simple answer to the question.
I would. This is me talking shit.
Put it
like out
on.
my ass.
If you're gonna do it, put your tinfoil hat on. You know the
I got
rules.
it on. Mark Hunt in Australia versus Greg Hardy boxing.
Nah, fuck off.
Not good. That's not a seller.
Leave Mark.
Leave Mark alone. All right, I'll leave Mark alone. I don't want to be on his bad side. You know what I mean? You see his when he trips out, right? He's hard. What about Bryce Mitchell, man? That fool, he went out there. He had a game plan. It looked beautiful, man. He did a great job.
Yeah, that's kind of like a susceptible style for Eton. Like it's pretty much Bryce. He's a lot smarter than he's leading on.
Mm-hmm.
That kid is clued up. Like, don't sit there and think he's some. I don't know
Backwood,
what can you call.
Backwood,
Yeah,
hillbilly?
like a backward hillbilly from. Where's he from? Arkansas.
Arkansas, yeah.
Don't think that. That kid is smart. That kid knows what he's doing. That kid knows how to build a brand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like just completely. I'm exposing him. I'm exposing Bryce Mitchell as a very smart young man.
He is, man. I think he's one of those guys that are smart.
Every move he makes is on. Every move he makes is money, and it's like that's just good. That's good tactics for war. Is making people think that you're not as smart as you are. That's just good. That's what a good tactician does. Is that's the best move for a tactician is to get your opponent to underestimate you.
Don't underestimate Arkansas. You know who else is from Arkansas? Bill motherfucking Clinton. And he became the U.S. president and one of the biggest pimps in the history of the world.
Blowjobs in the White House. Just saying.
Yeah. Just saying. It's undeniable because I watched that Netflix thing that they put out.
Just saying, I tip my Monica. Hat. I tip my hat. That guy knows how to get shit done.
He does. I don't know. He knows how to get shit done, and he knows how to do everything, man. But yeah, Bryce, he goes in there. I think my suggestion for Bryce is he fights somebody ahead of him, of course. And I think the best fight would be the fight that he would benefit most off of would be Giga Chikadze. Giga Chikadze is ranked higher, coming off a loss.
Do they usually do that? Yeah. I really like that fight. I think that's a great fight.
It's a good test.
I think that's a great fight.
If you look at the featherweight rankings, right, or if you look at the top guys in the featherweight, there's not really a guy that fights like Bryce at all. You know, like you would think Ortega would fight like that a little bit more, but he doesn't. He's a striker mostly now.
He's like a counter.
Yeah, he's
counter wrestling, counter jiu-jitsu.
Exactly. And you know, I guess the closest thing in that top 10 would be the guy you're fighting. He likes to, you know, get in the clinch and grapple a little bit more than the other guys do. But other than that, man, Bryce Mitchell, he brings a unique style and a unique like personality into that division. And you're right in the mix with that. You know what I mean? You're in there because you're gonna fight Arnold Allen in what is it? In London. There was a question up here. Let me see about your fight. Somebody was asking about something. Okay, here it is. It says, has Dan been asked by UFC if he might main event if Volkov doesn't get a visa?
They ain't gonna tell me that shit. Twitter will know before I know.
That's right.
100%. Twitter will know before I know. Now I've heard. I saw Tom Aspinall say that they have a backup. They didn't tell him who the backup was, but the UFC already has a backup. So if Volkov can't get his visa or whatever, Tom Aspinall will still main event against a backup fighter.
I wonder who's the backup. It has to be somebody.
Yeah, they didn't tell me. I'm sure they're telling me.
They would definitely tell him. I don't see who steps in on short notice against Tom Aspinall unless they're already in Vegas.
Just harass him for it.
Yeah, we might as well
That's your
message him
job.
1,000 times.
That's your job for the week.
That
Your
is my
job for the
job.
week,
My job is
bro.
partly to harass fighters, like not harass them like people would think, but like to kind of dig at them to get information, right? But I've swayed away from that. I don't want to be that type of guy that covers the sport. That's just me. Like I feel somewhat
Yeah.
uncomfortable because I'm pretty sure you've dealt with guys. I think you told me about a guy that you'd like
Oh,
told something
oh,
to, and then you're supposed to keep it quiet, and then you just went out there and fucking told everybody. Did that situation
uh,
happen?
man, they don't tell me shit anyway because they know. Maybe they just know I've got a big mouth and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
not a great liar. Like I'm. Maybe they're just. Maybe they're just like, nah, we won't tell Dan he's main event because a dumbass is gonna accept anything anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
why would we even have to tell him? It's not like we got to get it past the guy. It's not like we're gonna. It's not like he's gonna be like, nah. Like if they come to me on the night and I'm warming up out back and they're just like, yeah, we switched it. It's 5 rounds now. I just be like, nah. Oh well, let's do it. Like I'm not gonna have a sulk about it or anything like that. So why would they tell me? But no, like it does happen. It does happen. Like I think I talked about this earlier. Is when I got the Arnold Allen fight, like Sean Shelby had messaged me like midday,
Mm-hmm.
and like that afternoon, Errol Hawani messaged me and he's like, "Oh, yo, you fighting Arnold Allen? You fighting Arnold Allen like March 19th?" And I was just like, "How the like?" I just found out. I haven't even said yes. I just like I got the message and I was like, "Cool." Just shot it to like Eugene to have a look at and see what he would say. You know,
Yeah,
some
people find
people,
out. People find
some
out they
people
got
just know.
connections
There's moles everywhere. But nah,
everywhere,
like
and
I'm sure. Oh well, I'm sure that like managers use and guys like Iruwani like use each other. You know, it's like I'll tell you this about this fighter if you put this fighter on your show. But you can use that when you're a guy like Iru and have well he's the biggest, right?
mm,
He's the biggest media personality in our sport. So
without a doubt.
obviously he gets that kind of pull.
Yeah, even if you don't know him, people are probably messaging him. It's like, can you release this, even though it's not 100% signed or anything? Because why? It will push
Yeah, yeah.
public perception.
I get like a lot of I get the messages, you know, like when something happens or a rumor spreads out and people are just like, "What's going on?" Like my inbox will be full from like everyone just being like, "I won't tell anybody." That's how they start their message. They're like, "Just between, just between you and me." It's like, well, but it's just between you and me. Why you gotta know? Why can't you? You know, if you're just keeping it between you and me, it's like, why you gotta ask?
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Why you gotta ask, my guy?
Because whenever I get information from somebody, because sometimes I do get dropped information from people, I'm not even looking for it. I'm not even asking anybody about it. Because I'm not into the breaking news stuff. Like I'm not breaking news. I did for a while, a few years back, but that's just
How
too
can you just
stressful.
catch? I reckon you just catch too much heat, like doing the breaking news shit, like having the breaking news shit as you're the guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many times would you have to like apologize, or how many times like how many deals fall through like the last minute? You know, like both guys
Yeah.
agree, and then something happens. Like a lot of back room stuff would carry on, and the deal doesn't actually get across the
Mhm.
line. And so then it'll be it'll just be a stressful life being the breaking news guy. Like you put up a tweet, goes everywhere, and then one of the guys' managers is just like, nah, that's not happening. And then everyone comes back to you and just be like, you're a
Mhm.
dickhead and you're just making shit up. You're
Exactly.
just like,
That's
oh,
the risk, right? And I've
it's a
broken a
reputation.
couple.
Like it's a hard reputation to build,
It
right?
is. It is. Some guys do it really well, but they cover all the bases. They get both sides. And that's another thing. You have to have connections on both sides too. You have to be able to reach both camps or both managers to double check your sources and
Yeah,
all of that stuff. And if it's good, then you put it out. That stuff is stressful, man, because you have to go and chase after people and start trying to dig into them, and like that people could get rubbed the wrong way And with me, I do interviews with fighters. So I have to have a good relationship with fighters and their management and promotions. And I can't do both. You know, you can't interview fighters and then be breaking the news unless you're like Arrow Hawani, you know, you got like all this power and pull already, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but until you get to that point, you can't, you know, that's why everybody's trying to be Ariel. Like, I'm not trying to be Ariel. Everybody else, not everybody else, but there's a lot of people out there covering the sport trying to be Ariel. It's like, yo, Ariel's been covering the
Yeah, but
sport for
you're
like
starting
15
like
years.
you've like gone the avenue that's like very long term. Like your avenue will you're like I feel like you're like at the stage of investment when you do so many fight because I'm the same. Like you appreciate the people that first had you on. You know what I mean? You appreciate the people that first hit you up for an interview. Like now I get a million interview requests. I could check my message requests and I checked it maybe 2 days ago. I could check it today and I'd have 20, 30 podcast requests. Like, hey, can you come on my podcast? And it's like, this is my best one. People message you and they're like, yo, I'm about to start a podcast. Can you come on my first episode? And you're like, bro, how many fighters are out there? How many fighters are in the world? I'm not trying to be like, no, I'm too big name to come on your podcast or anything like that. Like, that's
Mhm.
not what I'm saying. I'm saying, how many fighters are there in the world? You can't do 10 podcasts with some local guys. Build your talent, build your
Mhm.
repertoire. But then I click on your podcast thing and I said, oh, this guy's done 20 podcasts with all of these fighters. Or like you're doing, you've done podcasts with my younger guys. Like
Mhm.
they'll remember that. I see you do countless podcasts with guys all on like Fight Pass prelims and like early days in their careers because you remember it. Because I remember uh MMA Junkie John MMA
Mhm.
Junkie. I
Yeah.
remember my UFC debut and I come in and I was just like, oh shit, I got an interview with MMA Junkie John. No shit. And I sit down and he starts asking me questions. He's like, well, I didn't even think he knew who I was, right? And he sits down and he's like, well, in 2010, this happened in a fight. Oh, well, and then in your next fight, you did this in 2000. And I was thinking, not only does this guy know who I am. This guy has gone and he's watched and studied my whole career. So now when I walk in a room and it's like MMA Junkie John, I'm like, my guy, like, what do you need from me? I will tell you whatever you need. And you're the
Mhm.
same because you've been interviewing me for so long that it's so comfortable. And, if you message me, hey, can we do an interview? Of course we can. Of course we
Mhm.
can. Because you're one of the first people that hits me up for interview. That's like the guy Combat TV in New Zealand.
Yeah,
Got
he's the
like
OG. The OG, yeah. The OG.
he's the OG.
G.
You know how many interviews like Israel Eugene's done before. Eugene used to be like my head coach would be like, no interviews. I'm not doing interviews. But Tony Robb, Tony Robb has been taking a camera to fight shows in New Zealand for longer than I've been alive. Like Tony Robb is an absolute man. He has like the catalog of New Zealand combat sport history.
Yeah.
It's just deep. Like he's got all my old fights, like way deeper. Like Jason Suddy's fights got like new legends of New Zealand combat sports. He's got Israel's fights. Like he's got like 20, 30 of Israel's first kickboxing fights. You know what I mean? Like, and he did an interview with Eugene after a fight when Eugene was like young. Eugene was young in his career. Tony came up to him with his camera and he's like, "Hey, I'd like to interview you." And he did the interview, and like Eugene was blown away, thinking, "Oh, why does anyone want to hear me talk?" So now when Tony Robb comes back, and Eugene's the superstar head coach of City Kickboxing, he's got time for Tony Robb because Tony Robb's been
Mhm.
holding that camera for so long that he feels like honored to give it back because he promoted him so early on in his career. So that's like to all the people out there starting podcasts. It's like, we'll start your damn podcast then. Don't don't just go around like messaging and attaching yourself to like big name fighters thinking that that's the way to do it because it's not. Like by the time that you get big in your career in 10 years, I'll be retired. But if you uh interview a guy that's just making his debut in 10 years. The guy might be the next Israel Adesanya. The guy
Exactly.
might be the next Conor McGregor. Like you just don't know that yet because no one's talked to the guy and he hasn't
Yeah.
had his opportunity. It's like
Yeah.
invest for the future.
It is. It is. It is a huge investment, man. It takes a while too. Like I remember the first 4 years. I kind of looked at it that way. The first 4 years was like my college years of covering the sport, where I was just like learning shit as I go and trying to do it a certain way. And I had to do it this way and that way and this way and that way for a while, man. And I just figured out like, okay, this is the way that I want to do it, and this is the way that it's gonna work, and which is I want to interview people. I want to talk to people, and this is how I can do it. And then just start interviewing as many people as I can because I'm dog shit right now. So I need to get my reps in, for like anything to
Yeah,
get
yeah, ref.
comfortable. Get comfortable and just
Talking
get
on camera.
understanding conversation. Because at the end of the day, really, I'm not that I'm not that like social in person. Like I'm not really that social in person. Like if I'm in person, if I really know you, then yeah, we'll chop it up. But if we're just like hanging out and like I don't really know you at all, I probably won't even talk to you, and you probably think I'm an asshole. But I don't care. Anyways, but yeah.
Oh, when you're talking about reps, you reminded me of bro. One of my friends brought it up because one of my friends uh found he found the video of my first interview I ever did, and now this is in like I can't remember 2011.
Mhm.
The first on camera interview I ever did after a fight. Dog shit. Absolute, absolute dog shit. Like it's so funny to watch it because talking on camera is like a trained skill. No one is. I don't feel like anyone um is just born good speaking on camera. Like it's a trained skill that you need to get comfortable with. It's just about getting comfortable with the camera and knowing that people. I don't know what it is. Like me, I just can just be myself, but that takes time. Like the first couple of times where someone just points a camera at you, you're just going, shit, what do I do? Like, and you're thinking, oh man, people are gonna watch it. Like you're just thinking about something else. But it's the funniest interview. It's just the worst. I'm pretty much saying the same stuff that I say now, but in just like the worst way possible. It's gold. I
I,
hope that then it's so hard to find. It's very difficult to find this interview as well. So it's like I want to keep this. I want to keep this interview hidden for as long as I possibly can. I have it, but I will keep it. I actually messaged them because they hit me up for an interview. Like the next fight show I was on, they were like, "Hey, can we do an interview before your next fight?" And I messaged them back and I said, "Delete that first interview off YouTube. Delete that, and I will do another interview." And they said, "Nah." They just left it. They were just like, "Nah, we want to leave that."
yeah, just like in anything, I think you have to just build relationships and build trust with individuals. And like you said, you have to know the people from the ground up. Like if you're starting a podcast, of course you're not going to reach out to a top 10, top 5 guy in the UFC. Like you're just if you do get one of those guys, good luck, I mean, cuz you're probably going to sound like dog shit during the podcast because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. But you get reps with guys that never done it before or go to shows. I remember the first show I covered like in person with like the mic and the camera and everything. I was nervous as shit. But then as I got into the flow,
Right.
I was like, "Oh, this ain't shit, man. This is what I do." You know what I mean? Like, and then just like start rolling and shit. Just roll through it. But yeah, we could talk about
Trust
this
is
for.
trust is like the biggest thing when it
Mhm.
comes. There's probably four people in New Zealand media that I will speak to. There's probably four people
Mhm.
that do articles for media in New Zealand. And you're talking to a guy that says yes to everything. I used to do everything. Like I used to do absolutely every interview request I would get. I'd just be like, yeah, sweet, like hit me up for an interview, do the interview. But people would take your words and twist them,
Yeah.
push silly headlines, um, make you out to be the bad guy. like a lot of people can chop it up. Or like New Zealand, I would say the like New Zealand media's one is like they'll be cool to you when you're winning, and or like there's a big one. There's like the two main ones in New Zealand is like the New Zealand Herald and Stuff.co.nz. Obviously, they are always every fight I have, they interview me. They interview me every single one before, after, like no worries. But that's like the same news outlet that send a reporter around to my gym to photograph me from the bushes and try to get my fight canceled.
Yeah.
They tried to get my fight canceled, and then they asked me for a request to interview me for the fight. And I was just like, are you fucking serious? The same news outlet that tried to cancel this fight is now trying to interview me so people click on their website so they get more money. I was thinking, you have to be off your head. Like, I don't do interviews with stuff, regardless of who the reporter is. Will not do interviews with stuff. Another one in New Zealand is like, they hit me up after I saw a news article after like Blood Diamond's fight, and there's just a completely disrespectful headline. Like, man, he got caught by like an incredible grappler. It happens. Spilt milk, shit moves on. He'll be all right. You know what I mean? Like, guy went out there on his UFC debut. Hard luck. Move on to the next one. Just being from New Zealand, you think that they would support you and back you up. They put like the image was of him like face down and just being like just the most disrespectful headline you can think of. They out too. I won't do interviews with them either. So it's like they're just stupid. Like they cut off their nose to save their face. It's just like you can't respect us when we're winning and then just go like, disrespect us when we're stumble. You know what I mean? Because we
Yeah.
don't stumble for too long. You come
Nah.
you come back.
I remember seeing those photos though, and they look like you were walking away from like a drug deal or something. Like there was photos of your coach too, Eugene, walking out the gym like he was like in some
Well,
mob meeting.
they sent they sent cops around to our houses at the same time, and they sent like senior sergeant. So that's like I don't know how many layers up in the police force, but it's like quite high up. You know what I mean? They sent like senior sergeants around to both of us, our houses, to at the same time to catch us, and they found Eugene at his house. They came around here. I wasn't at home. They'd like knocked on the door, and my wife was home. I was actually at the gym again. Like the cops, the cops had called me there the day before, and then they were like came around to tell me off. But they like knocked on the door, and then she was like, they were like, "Oh, where's Dan?" And my missus was just like, "Oh, he's gone for a run." Like my car was missing. She's like, "Oh, he's gone for a run," and then she like quickly calls me up, and she's like, "The cops are around here." She's like, "Bounce from the gym, bounce from the gym." I was just like, "Oh shit!" Like, because I was there like grabbing gear and stuff to take home. And I went like just quickly fill my car with the gear, drive home, whoop down. But yeah, they caught us. I think they went around and they were just like, yeah, had the big pictures and everything. I was like, nah, not guilty. You ain't guilty to your court. I had my shopping bag. I was just dipped in. I just forgot my shopping bag. I just pulled in the gym, grabbed a shopping bag. Like that's my cover story. That's my cover story.
Is that why like I've seen like interviews with Israel too, him talking about like the exact same I think the media and stuff like in New Zealand, like that he'll never fight in New Zealand again. Is that part of that? Like just people trying to paint him in like a bad picture? And he's been attacked way more than probably anybody at your camp.
Yeah, like there's I don't know the exact circumstance with Israel, but I can definitely understand it. Like they use him when they want to, you know what I mean? But as soon as they get the opportunity to create a controversial headline about him, they'll do it. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
and then they'll do that. Like their same news station will just make like a completely disrespectful headline and
Yeah.
twist his words and stuff like that. And then the next week be like, "Oh, can we get an interview with Israel Adesanya?" And it's like, nah, like, are you serious? We're not. we're like we're lucky that we're in a sport that, because they like talking to us, like news stations and people like talking. Just people in general like hearing from UFC fighters and MMA fighters, because we're not under the same regulations as more mainstream sports. Like in New Zealand, if you play like soccer, rugby, netball, or something like that, you sign a deal with the New Zealand Rugby Association, and that has like a strict code of conduct. You can't say this, you can't do this, you can't do that, or we'll tear up your contract. Like the UFC's code of conduct ones, like pretty much like don't be racist and don't be homophobic, and besides that, like do whatever the fuck you want. Like who in our sport in the UFC has been punished from our code of conduct? Like Sean Strickland's not even being punished by our code of conduct. Like our one is like as loose as any as any like big sport or mainstream sport in the world. So that's why people fans like to hear from us, because it's like honest. You're gonna get like an honest answer. Like we are more free to speak about like controversial issues, whether that pisses you off or whether you align yourself with the issues. It's different, you know. It's I like that freedom. Like that's really one of my biggest passions of being MMA fighters. You get like a lot of freedom. You're free to be yourself. You can work when you want to work. Like it's a very I feel free as being a fighter, not like controlled by any organizations or things like that. And it's like big sponsors don't touch us anyway. So it's like it's very hard to there's not many mainstream brands that touch fighters. Like what sponsors have we got? Like alcohol, supplements,
Crypto
is big.
Sportswear.
We don't.
Yeah.
Fight gear. There's like it's very niche. Like it's not like a big mainstream food brand. It's not like Kraft is going to be like, oh, you know what, I'm going to sponsor a fighter, because it doesn't align with like their values. You think like Red Bull won't touch a fighter? They I think it's more crazy jumping out of an airplane and or the guy jumped out of a airplane with no parachute on. Can sponsor that. Can't sponsor a combat sport athlete. Red Bull doesn't sponsor combat sport athletes. Like a lot of places don't. Like there's only a small market of businesses that will sponsor a fighter. Like we think it's mainstream, but like, is it really? Is it really? Do you see like a Geico? You see a UFC fighter on a Geico ad? You know what I mean? It's a family brand. They're not going to touch them.
Yeah. Well, when I look at it as a big deal when when fighters get like sponsors from like car dealerships or like a chain like convenience store or something like that. You know, like the Korean Zombie, you know, he's gonna fight Volkanovski soon, and he just got a sponsorship from GS25. GS25 is like a major corporation. That's like the biggest sponsor, one of the biggest sponsors you could ever get in Korea. And it's a fighter, and fighting is so niche in Korea. Like it's looked down upon in some ways. You know what I mean? Jiu-jitsu is big because it's like a martial art, but fighting is like blood and, you know, your violence and all that shit. And the Korean Zombie getting that sponsorship was just a major deal. Nobody really cares around the world, but in Korea, it's like something that, you know, people really look at and say, wow, you know what I mean? Like that's huge. The Korean Zombie actually did something, you know, with MMA in Korea. You know, if he wins the title, it'd be massive. Yeah, it's very cool. And you guys too, you know, I remember you guys getting, this was years ago, like you and Kai were getting like car sponsorships. To me, that's still huge. You know what I mean? Like who gets car sponsorships? Not many fighters out there. It's if you look at this UFC roster of like 600 fighters, what's the percentage of fighters do you think are getting car dealership sponsors? Very, very small, right? It could be in the single digits, right, of fighters. So that's huge. But I think John Jones, like, I think he fucked it up for everybody, because John Jones at his peak, he was being sponsored by Gatorade. Nobody has been sponsored by Gatorade. Only John Jones as a fighter. He was getting sponsored by Nike. And I know that Anderson Silva and I think Junior Dos Santos got sponsorships by Nike, but after John Jones, nobody ever has been sponsored by Nike, I believe. And I like John
That's a
Jones.
pretty
I love
big.
him as a fighter,
That's a
but
pretty big blow. That's a pretty big fuck up, though.
exactly,
Like
that's what I'm
for
saying.
Nike, they would just shit the absolute bed, like being on drugs and crashing into a pregnant lady and then driving off. Like that's pretty. That's about as bad as PR that Nike could ask. It's about as worse as that deal could possibly go.
Exactly. And if imagine if that never happened, right? And John Jones was able to keep those sponsors, maybe that could have led to other fighters getting those types of sponsors. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That I'm just speculating. Let me put my
Mm.
fucking hat on, right?
I thought
I'm
I was
just
gonna call you.
speculating. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just speaking free right now about could John Jones been the reason why the big sponsors are really like hands off, you know what I mean, of getting on with a fighter because possibility of that. And John is continued to fuck up, you know what I mean? It's not like he's just fucked up that one time and he kind of changes. Like he's just continuously fucking up. And I hope he does better moving forward. But that could have been like that point where we kind of went back a few steps. We were going steps forward with sponsorships, and then that point kind of went back a few, and now we're just trying to kind of get closer and closer. And like guys like Israel, he's getting like Puma. Those are I think that's a big deal. You know what I mean, getting those types of deals. And there's other fighters out there that are getting sponsorship deals from like huge crypto companies. I think that's even big, but maybe that was the point where it kind of went back a few steps for fighters. And I wonder who's going to get the Nike sponsorship. You know what I mean? Who can get one of those? Because
Yeah, I think like I can speak for myself. Like the bigger name guys, like you get to a certain point when like it becomes like getting blood from a stone, like getting getting money out of traditional like sponsorship avenues. Like you can look at Conor McGregor and what he's done. Like very rarely does he market something or promote something that he doesn't have um, ownership of. Dustin Poirier with his hot sauce, Conor McGregor with his alcohol brand, Masvidal with his alcohol brand, Nate Diaz's clothing brand, Nate Diaz's weed brand. Like they're not just advertising a company or they're not just promoting a company. It's their ownership. So whatever they promote, they own a share of, and that's important for young fighters coming up. Once you reach like a certain level, it's important to create businesses and use your platform to promote your own business instead of promoting other people's businesses.
yeah, you're right. And also, like you said, on the brand thing, like if you look at like even Volkanovski, he's created like his own YouTube channel. He has a business, I believe, the what is it, the supplement business, CMBT. I believe he's part owner of that company, and then he has some other stuff going on too. You know what I mean? So I think like fighters are starting to like do that more nowadays, and starting to think like, okay, I could rely on myself to do this stuff and kind of like diversify and put my hands in different pots, you know what I mean? Stuff
You
that
have,
you know.
yeah, you have to as well because also as a young guy, like you say, and you say yes to everything. Just like I
Mm.
used to say yes to all the interviews. You say yes to all the sponsorships. Like someone's like, "Oh man, I'll sponsor you this," and then you're just like, "Yeah, cool." And then you get like a load of products and stuff, and you're sponsoring it, and then it turns out shit. Like you sponsoring a drink, and then you get like a case of free whatever, and you just start drinking, and you're like, man, this tastes like shit, and it gives me a headache. This is terrible. People come up to you and complain to you. They come up to your face and they're just like, I bought that drink. It gives me a headache and, it tastes like dog shit. And you're just like, oh, like you're just like a young guy. You're just like, oh, I just did a post about it. I just did it for like a couple $100. You know what I mean? Like, but people complain about it, and it's bad for your brand. Like you promote something and it's a bad quality product. People come up to you and complain about it. Like if you promote a glove and it falls apart, people come up to you with the glove and they come up to you like you're a representative because you are a representative for that company, and they're just like, this fell apart in 5 minutes, and they'll kind of hitting you up for a refund. You're like thinking, motherfucker, I don't work there. I'm not giving you. I ain't giving your money back. I don't have that much. I don't have that much money. I just started fighting the UFC. I don't have the money to pay for that shit or buy you new gloves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to be careful about what brands you like associate your name with, and before you like promote it, you need to understand that it's like a quality product before you stick your name to it.
Well, I'm gonna just put this out there. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, you want to pay me to brand some shit? Pay me. I'm here for you. Like,
You're at
it
that
tastes like
stage.
shit.
You're at
I'll
that
drink
stage.
it and put on that
Yeah.
shit-eating grin. I'm at that stage. You know what I mean? I'm at that
You're at
stage.
that
Like,
stage. You're at that stage.
I'm on the street. You
I
know.
don't hate the play. I respect that. I respect it. I'm not throwing shade at you or anything like that. I've been there. You're just like, yeah, I'll take 10 of them. Oh, this is great. Falls apart in 5 minutes. People just complaining, messaging you, being like, hitting you up with the complaints, like, oh, the handle fell off, and you're like, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? That's your problem. I was like, ask the company. You know what I mean?
For real, you gotta. Yeah, it's just
Like people come up to me at city, like city kickboxing, and they're just like, "Oh, my membership, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Do I look like the receptionist, bro?" I'm just like, I was like, I got my own job, I got my own problems. I was like, hit me up for my job, hit me up. I got my own problems. Go, this is Eugene's problems. Take it up with him.
Speaking of sponsors, like this show, like the UFC 272, a lot of the fighters were shouting out Marshall, Rogan, Inu. I guess they're sponsoring a lot of the fighters now, and seems like they're doing really well. You know what I mean? I guess it's like a crypto thing. I'm not for sure. You know what I mean? I'm not educated on the topic. And then at the end of the day, I don't fact check anything. So whatever I'm saying right now, or any of these shows that we've done, I'm just speaking my truths. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not even checking facts, to be honest with you. So people, dude, you should see the people. The people will fact check you like you are a professor of MMA or some shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's fucking insane. Like the levels that they go to pinpoint some kind of detail. Like when you were talking about Benil's injury, and you're like, you said femur, but I know what you were talking about, right? But you said femur, and there people are like, how do you break the femur? That's like your grandma. Your grandma falls and she breaks her femur. Like, how did Benil break his femur? Like, come on, yo, chill out. Like, it's
Do I
not
look
that
like
serious.
a fucking doctor?
Exactly.
Who clicks on Dan Hooker's podcast and just be like, oh, you said something, you know what I mean? Do I look like a fucking health professional? You know what I mean? I'm a cage fighter. I fight people in a cage. Take everything I say with a pinch of salt. Take everything I say. I'm a guy that fights, gets punched in the head for a living. Think before you start quoting me, you know what I mean?
Exactly, but they love it, man. They love it. But yeah, it's a trip, man. Let's go out. We got a couple minutes left. We'll go out with a few questions from the people, right?
Go, bang.
All right, let's start with this one. Francis for asking more money. And it's
What
a
is that?
question.
Like, you just put a question. You can't even just 01 and 01.
Yes.
At least be able to formulate a sentence. Like, I know what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but I'm not going to answer it. That's not even a question. Francis for asking for more money? Question mark.
All right.
What about it? What about it? That's a very broad question. Next question.
All right. Let's see. Zachary S. Brennan. Would a Connor versus Colby fight work?
I don't care for it. Next question. We got a minute and a half.
All right, this one, Rogan Inu. We talked about that, or did we talk about it? What were your thoughts on have they hit you up, Marshall Rogan?
I wouldn't have a clue what that is.
All right, I'm thinking you'll have a clue by the time you fight again, right? Most likely something's gonna come around.
I better have a damn clue. Oh, she asked it again. What else did she say? Did she ask the question again?
No. So you're saying I can use? Oh no, it's like, so you're saying I could use Cameo to get Dan to promote a shitty product just so people can complain to him?
Man, I ain't gonna, bro. My Cameo is just for fun. I do it for fun. It's $20. sometimes I just tell you to shut up, you're a dickhead. That's actually been some of my videos. They're just like, hey, Dan, say this. And I'm just like, you can't even formulate a sentence. How am I supposed to read this? I don't even know what you're trying to say. And I'll send that video back and I'll just be like, if you can't write your question, you don't get an answer. That's $20. It's $20. I do it for fun. Think I'm in it for the money. Cameo is fun.
Those highlights are fun. Last question, man. We're about to go out. You guys, if you guys got questions, hit me up on Twitter, JHKMMA, and then
write the question properly. Write it in a sentence that someone can easily understand. You know what I mean? We all went to school to a certain level. You should be able to formulate a question.
All right, last one. Chase Falconer. That's a dope ass name. Favorite sparring partner?
BJ Bland. BJ Quicksand Bland fights on the PFL Challenger Series the day before I fight Arnold Allen.
All right, BJ Bland. BJ Bland's been around. I'm gonna have to hit up BJ Bland and give him a quick chat.
He's the bane of my existence. He's a thorn in my side.
All right. Well, all right, people. Thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe if you have not, and share this video and do what you need to do with it. Watch it 10 times. Support it. Support Dan, following him on social media.
Watch it 10 times.
I'm just saying, man. Just get the numbers up. Just get the numbers up. But yeah, man. So everybody, Dan, you got some final words for the people watching? You know.
See, I've used enough words. That's 90 minutes of words. I've used all my words for the day. I'm going to bed. I'll see you next week.